All right, everybody, welcome to Are They Out There? Tonight, again, we've got Stuart and Bobby, and tonight we actually have our first sponsor, Oz Creative Crafts. Now, Oz is a friend of mine. He's got a business going. He's also a veteran. He's doing things like this for us and for anybody out there. He is going to have a website up soon. I told him that I'd pimp him a little tonight. He'll be sending Stuart you some stuff, Bobby you some stuff, and then we'll start to do a couple of giveaways for him here on the show. So he is our first sponsor, Oz Creative Crafts. And tonight we are going to talk about alien abductions. And I want to apologize to everybody first. Our NASA guy, he got called out and he went to Texas, and right now he is radio silent on us. So we're hoping when he gets done with that, whatever he's doing and Black Ops or whatever for NASA, that we can get him on here shortly. Some other news that I have is that I'm having lunch next week with a couple of folks from that have contacts, I should say, with Skinwalker and Blind Frog, and the possibility of also having a meeting with Jim Morse, who is the ranch manager for Skinwalker. Mm-hmm. So I am working on getting us out there and hopefully getting some interviews with these guys and maybe spending some time on the ranch. So next week we'll find out if that'll become a reality or if they just tell me to go to hell. So
yeah,
sure. Hey, closed mouth don't get fed. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. So let's start out with, I think, Bettey and Barney Hill, man. That was in the 60s. That was probably the biggest abduction story of its time. On that. Far. You know, and that happened in September of 61, actually. And it went on for basically 2 days, the night of the 19th and then the 20th for them. Right? You guys are familiar with what happened out there, right?
Yeah. No. It was a couple, especially for their time. I just always think it's kind of weird. Like, I mean, they were a mixed couple and that wasn't really too kosher back then. And then, right. So it's just like, why would you want to draw that much attention to yourself? You know what I mean? Like most of those couples, especially for that era, just kind of wanted to be left alone. So it's just, to me, I'm always like, you have to look, the cause and effect. Like, it probably made their lives a living hell.
Right. And, they were both postal workers at the time, too. They were in New Hampshire, which, again, the early 60s, like you said, it's not to draw attention to themselves. And this definitely drew some attention on that.
So does anybody, I remember, I read about this once before, too. Is anybody can anybody recall like how the story went, like how it went down?
Yeah.
They were on yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Stuart.
I just remember they were on their way home, correct? And then they had some missing time.
Right. They were coming home from Niagara Falls. They were actually on Route 3. And Bettey had started to see a light in the sky, which she thought was a shooting star, except it was going up and moving around. And they drove up some roads to where they went to a place called Twin Mountain, New Hampshire, to get a better look at this. Bettey said it was about 40 feet long when she first saw it. Barney was looking through binoculars. He thought it was an aircraft at first, but then the lights and stuff like that just weren't making sense. Then it descended down in front of them as they were driving down the road. And according to Barney, it was hovering about 100 feet above them, between 80 and 100. And it made Barney stop in the middle of the road. He had a pistol with him, and he gets out of the car. Yeah, he had a pistol with him, and he had his binoculars. He gets out of the car, right, and he's looking up at this, what he described as like a flat pancake, and he saw windows,
right,
and he said in the windows he saw like about, I think it was like between 8 and 11 figures, and then he said they all moved like down what he described as like a hallway because they were going past the windows, except one that kept staring at him. He said that he felt like, at the time he didn't use telepathy. I forget the words he used, like brain talking or something like that, because they hadn't really in those days, telepathy hadn't really like come out as a norm.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that this thing that was staring at him kept telling him to stay where he was, just stay where you're at. Now, he described him as wearing glossy black uniforms and these like black caps of some type, and you know, and big eyes. The big eyes was the thing. And so Barney had like the first thing about it, and the aftermath of it all was because it was so they like you said, they lost time. He described it like he was having memory lapses. He couldn't remember things from that night.
And weren't there watches? Something about their watches, right?
Yeah. So after it was all over, they said that their watches never worked again. The leather strap on the binoculars were busted, and Barney said he doesn't know how they got busted. And Bettey and them were like, you know, we don't remember them ever being torn or busted. The one thing too was on Bettey's dress, there was like a pink powder. And she said she remembers hanging it outside on the clothing line, let the wind blow all the pink powder off of it. And then she had some rips along the hemline, the zipper, and one other place in the dress. And I know that like the dress, I think her dress shoes were scuffed. They're all at her alma mater now. Along with like the hypnotic tapes and stuff like that they did at the time. So there were some weird things. They said that they were having some other issues. What do I want to call it? Sensations and stuff that were just weird to them at the time. One of the other weird things that Bettey had that it was like they used to keep their luggage like in a different room, and she was like wanting it in the front room by the door. Like it was just like she didn't know why, but she wanted to keep her luggage for no reason. You know, just these weird things that were happening to them at the time. The other thing is that they heard buzzing with the UFOs, and it kind of I think the buzzing sound is like where it blacked them out type thing, where their memory got all jogged up with that. You know, and then Bettey started having the vivid dreams. Like 10 days after this whole event, she started having vivid dreams about seeing the aliens and walking them back to the car and telling them to stay in the car and watch them leave or something to that effect. And then under hypnosis, both their stories were very similar, but Barney was very freaked out about their eyes. That was one of his big things. He was like, their eyes were so big and so close. He was like, he didn't even know if they had a body. They were like so close and pressing was one of his big things there, which, you know, I kind of find a little interesting that for him, it was the eyes. And Bettey says under hypnosis, she remembers them walking them back to the car and looking back and seeing Barney, but not being able to talk to him and him not hearing anything on that.
Well, so I was listening to this retired CIA agent, and he's claiming what happened was what eventually becomes Operation Bluebeam. He was saying that that was the start of it, was the government was going to start making it look like we were being invaded by aliens and alien attacks and stuff like that, to eventually try to form a one world government. You know, if they could, so the way he explains it is if they can create a common enemy for the world, then they can form a one system government for the world. So they were gonna, apparently they were saying that was actually the one he brought up was the Bettey and Barney Hill story, and he said that was kind of the start of it.
Right.
Using, you know, technology and holographics and et cetera, which, you know, nowadays with our government coming out and saying, yes, there are aliens, it's like, okay, what the hell do we believe anymore? You know?
Right.
Oh yeah.
I mean, because I've heard several other people talk, and they say, yeah, but they said that, there's somewhere between 50 and 60 different species of them. Like there's not just an alien.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what I've heard too. But that's just, kind of one of the things, like, it's so hard to know, like, with the whole thing that's going on with Maui right now, I mean, you would think that if they were trying to kind of push that, they would have had like UFO sightings. They would have, like, they would have taken kind of some of their shuttles and flown them around there, so people would be like, "Oh, look what I saw!"
Right.
I think that they have to. I think that the way that they're having to do it is like, and I've seen some of the stuff. Like I know it might have been China or Japan or whatever. Their holographics have become so good that they've made it where it looks like dragons and stuff are flying across the skies.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I believe it.
When I see a dragonfly, I'll see a pig fly at the same time. I'm pretty sure.
I'm being serious. Like they just did a big event. They just did a big event, but the holographics they said were so good that it looked like dragons going across the sky.
Right.
I mean, even years ago, I mean, they did a remake of. They had Tupac having a concert. You know what I mean? Looked just like the guy out there.
There's that Coachella.
Yeah. So what I found interesting with the whole Barney and Bettey Hill situation is that this happened in 1961, and then Barney dies in 1969. He's 46 years old, man. Yeah.
What was the cause of death?
I don't know. I didn't get into the background of that, but Bettey lived until she was 80. I think it was 89, and she died in 2004, I believe it was.
Oh, wow.
When she passed away, and I think she went on a couple shows and she talked about, the instances and stuff. And Stuart, you were right. I mean, being a biracial couple back then, they had their issues. And, skeptics came out and said what they saw was a beacon light. I forget what the mountain was called there in New Hampshire. But this all happened, everything was in New Hampshire where this happened. But it's just like anybody else, they want to try to explain it away on that. But for me, that story, I mean, you can be a skeptic or be whatever you want, but if you listen to the tapes of them under hypnosis, I believe something happened to them. And I was it aliens or was it our government or something? But something definitely happened to that couple. I mean,
obviously, like you're saying, though, if they're under hypnosis, regardless of who done it, they really believe they saw something there.
Correct.
And
like, something happened to them.
They're not fabricating their story.
Right. So, I mean, and it's 1961. I mean, we had Project Blue Book. I think Project Blue Book was kind of kicking up around that time or starting to die off. And with Project Blue Book, the one thing, my dad was Air Force and stuff. And they with Project Blue Book, they explained everything. It was either weather or it was a balloon or,
swamp gas.
And that's for another time, but I want to get into Project Blue Book, and I can't remember the doctor's name. Heineken, like the beer, something like that. We'll get it right when we do it.
I think it's Eichen.
He,
no, that's it. I think that's a Nazi dog. No, I don't know what. Yeah.
But
man, I just know that like everybody, I mean, like multiple sources, the ones that I hear that are like, they all agree they're aliens, but they say there's many different species of them. Like,
right.
And that's what I keep hearing is like, and these are from multiple sources, these aren't the same people in different time, but they're saying, sometimes there's between, I guess they want to say between 50 and 60 different species of them and sizes and shapes and whatnot, so, that they're not all the same.
I was in Oregon for season 11 of Gold Rush, right? And we were there's this local watering hole that we would always kind of go to. And one of the producers met this dude who's he's kind of a pompous asshole, but he just kind of, he was sitting over, and I guess he's actually a world renowned, like he's written a number of books, he's spoken at a number of colleges, things like that. But either way, he was reading like essentially the Wall Street Journal, but it's like, you know, of Japan. And he was saying that he worked for, you know, was in the Air Force, and that he became an actual Men in Black. And I sat there and had to listen to this guy talk for like an hour and a half, you know, of him just, you know, just talking some of the wildest, craziest stories. But and he's like, essentially, he's like, you know, in his 80s, and he was saying that, yeah, there's multiple species, not there's multiple interactions, you know, like thousands of.
This isn't fucking Fred's fucking father-in-law, is it?
No, 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 no. This is some random. This is some random dude.
No.
And I looked and then he like, I wish, but I was just so much like, yeah, bro, cool story.
I'd have totally listened. I'd have listened to all
Oh
that.
no, yeah, but I was just sitting there, but I looked him up, you know, like while we're sitting there, because he was like, you know, I'm a world famous blah blah blah, and I was like, okay. So I looked up, and sure as shit, he had multiple books, and then like, but he was just an old man perv, like he was hitting on Kara. Like anything that would like listen to him for a second, he was like hitting on, trying to be like, why don't you come back to the room? You know what I mean? Like just.
Well, you know, I know I told you guys this before on earlier podcasts, but my dad, when he traveled, you know, they basically gave him an honorable discharge when he got to the next base. They re-enlisted him, but I remember after his last tour in Vietnam, he said he was going to the Philippines. He was in a black suit, white shirt, and black tie, and that's all he wore. Now,
but
you know, and the thing is, I mean,
was your dad like incredibly like intelligent, smart? Did he have like a field of exercise that was just different from anybody else?
But here's the thing: we never knew. He kept everything quiet. Like, so he told us he worked command post. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And he said, oh, I work in the blockhouse and da-da-da. And his DD-214 said he was an air traffic controller. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, shit, my dad he had a hard time parking the car, let alone, you know, directing an airplane to park type thing, you know.
You're gonna find out one day, Gary, he was a gigolo or something. Like he was internationally just making tons of money, pleasuring women.
Yeah, well, you know, but again, his top secret clearance, and I've spoke about that before. When I first started looking into it, it referred to UFOs and the Nuclear Proliferation Treaty, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now when you look up his top secret clearance, it just has to do with the Nuclear Proliferation Treaty. Like the UFO part is gone on that. But like when we were in Texas at Bergstrom Air Force Base, the building out front was called the Donut. It's a Hilton now, believe it or not.
Yeah.
But we were able to go about 3 stories underground with him when he quote went to work. And he went through a door that was about yay thick.
Yeah.
And he would tell us that he went down a few more levels, but he would not talk about his work. He took it to his grave. And I said this before on another show. A friend that did the same thing as him, and he just recently passed away. He came to my dad's funeral. This was almost 21 years ago. And I asked him, I said, Mac, I said, what did Dad do in the Air Force? And he goes, now, Gary, he goes, I can't tell you. And I go, why, Mac? And he goes, I can't tell you. He says, I just can't. And I says, well, then tell me about the UFOs. And he got straight-faced, dead serious, looked at me and went, I'm going to tell you one thing. He goes, they's real, and don't ever ask me again. And that was it, man. I got a cold chill because Mac had never like gotten that serious with me, right? And he had never pointed a finger at me ever in our whole lifetime, right? And I mean, shit, I'd visit Mac all the time up until a couple of years ago before he passed away. I mean, that's the kind of friend he was.
I just don't get it. I don't get I mean, I'm sorry, on my deathbed, I'm like making a recording. You know
right?
What I mean?
Spill the beans.
Yeah,
right?
That's probably why I'm not. Probably why I'm not in the top secret security clearance fucking jobs at the moment. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but both of them took what they did to their grave. And
that's a hell of a. I mean, like, what can you threaten somebody with to hold that secret that long? You know what I mean?
Right. And the only thing I found in my dad's paperwork when he passed away was a letter from the Air Force that said if anybody ever approached him ever talked to him about anything with him in the Air Force or whatever, that he had to immediately report it to the nearest base, embassy, whatever, or he could be arrested, thrown in jail, basically. I mean, it was a threatening letter, basically telling him that if anybody ever approaches him, he had to report it immediately. And I think the total DD-214s I found were like about around 11 or 12 when he passed away. Which to me, I mean, you guys, right? You got one DD-214 for being in, right? Yeah. So really strange. So let's move on to our next abduction. In this one, I got to tell you, I don't think it happened. Okay. I got some deals there.
Yeah,
but
I don't know this one. Y'all have to fill me out on
this is Travis Walton. They made a movie called Fire in the Sky. Travis Walton had written a book about his experience, and when Hollywood wanted to make the movie of it, Travis's book was so mundane because there wasn't a lot of action, and that they actually spiced it up in Hollywood. So like not even a third, I think, of the Hollywood movie is like real. Right. Just certain events supposedly are real. So and this happened November 1st of 1975. Okay, so they were up in the I wrote this down because I'm going to say it wrong.
In Oregon.
They were in the Apache no, it was Arizona, man. It wasn't Oregon.
Oh,
it was
the
Apache Sit-Greaves National Forest near Snowflake, Arizona. Is where it was. He went missing for 5 days, 6 hours, right? Like they got the hours down on this, right? There were 6 of them in a truck, right? They went out. I don't know if they were on their way or on their way home. It really isn't clear on what I was looking up and reading about.
It was on their way home. They're loggers, right? They were out there.
They're out doing clearing some forest and stuff, and they see this object, kind of saucer shaped, hovering about 110 feet off the ground, according to the 5 and Walton. And Travis gets out of the truck and he starts walking toward this object, and this light comes down, this beam of light comes down and hits him, and he goes unconscious. Right? So according to Travis, he wakes up in a hospital-like room with these beings that are standing around him, and I think he says like they're 4 foot something, and he says that he starts to fight them, and another being comes in with a helmet on and takes him to another room where they lay him down. And here's the part where I'm like, even more. He says that 3 or 4 humans put plastic over his face, and it's the last thing he remembers. And he wakes up on the side of the road in Heber, Arizona. Okay. So that's all he remembers. That's all I mean, that's the book, right? So you can see where Hollywood is. So the other 5 guys, well, at first, law enforcement thinks that the 5 guys murdered him, right? So they all take lie detector tests. All of them pass but one, and one comes back not conclusive. So they can't tell if he's lying or he's telling the truth, right? But the other 4, they were telling the truth about this. Now, the sheriff, oh God, what was the county? Hang on, I got to look at notes here because I wrote down what county, because I found this super, super interesting, that it was the Navajo County. Navajo County Sheriff said that Travis's older brother, Travis, and his mom were very acute students of UFOs. Like they were into the whole ufology thing. Right? So this made the sheriff think, right? Now here's the kicker of this story too, right? So Travis claims that it happened, and I think Travis is still alive. He goes on a game show on Fox, right? And the game show is called The Moment of Truth, right? and I had to write down the words that were used. They asked him if it was in fact that he was abducted by a UFO on November 5th, 1975, to which he said yes. What do you think the result came back as?
False.
Lie.
Came back as false.
I was gonna say, because he'd have been on The Price is Right, Bob Barker would have run him up off that motherfucker.
Hey, no, but hey, but he also, but hasn't he taken numerous lie detector tests?
He has, and so the thing is especially in the 70s, right, and coming into the 80s, lie detector tests weren't that reliable. They were just coming in to their own.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, you could take 2 Xanaxes and pass that thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
so to me, right? I mean, that's the whole story. He gets abducted, right? 5 people say they saw him get abducted. He has a fight with 4 or 5 little 4-foot guys. A guy with a helmet takes him into another room, and then these human people put plastic on its face, and that's it. He's out. Doesn't remember another thing until he wakes up or reappears 5 days, 6 hours later in Heber, Arizona, on the side of the road.
You know, something I always like look at the aliens. You know, they never have hair. You know what I'm saying? Like they're like hairless. You figure they're colder than shit.
No, there's a race of alien that's basically like Nordic. So they're like 7 feet tall and they look like Vikings. Right. Yeah, I mean, like they're all blonde hair, blue eyed, and yeah, there's a couple of them. But then there's like they even think like Bigfoot's in it.
Right. Yeah. Right? You know, they say right when usually like if you see a Bigfoot, then you see a UFO, and they think that either the UFO is like transporting or beaming down with Star Trek technology, Bigfoot, or actually Bigfoot's the aliens themselves on that. But a lot of people think that he did this for money. Because right?
Absolutely.
I mean, look at books, movies, TVs, interviews, right? All this stuff. So a lot of them think that this was a setup for all of them to make money.
Well, it's like once you do it and like it picks up, like you have to run with the lie then.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, he was just on Joe Rogan.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, he was just on Joe Rogan like that within the past year, I do believe. Maybe 2 years. But, yeah.
So I want to say, just recently I was watching something, and this guy was, I wish I could remember his damn name, but he almost looked like a hillbilly. And God, I wish I could remember his name. I want to say he lived in West Virginia or North Carolina, something like that. But he actually got pictures of supposed aliens, and they told him the only way that he would be able to take a picture of them, because they're 4-dimensional, and we live in a 3-dimensional world, is he would have to do something to slow it down, like slow the somehow. So he somehow did something with water that was able to take the picture, like almost like a lens. And supposedly, like the pictures I looked at do kind of look like aliens. Like the aliens told him, like he would have to do something where it would take the picture of something that's moving the speed of light, basically. Yeah. And the guy does not look smart at all. Like, you listen to him talk, and the pictures that he took, almost like a flash, but it has red eye in them. So it's supposedly that's supposed to be the eyes of it, and that's why they say, well, it's got red eye in it, so you know that they're living. But supposedly the way he explains it is they're a 4-dimensional creature, and they're not from outer space per se. They're from dimensional. If that makes sense. Yeah. And he was saying that's the guy that was saying that there was like 50 different species. Right. That he's like, they're not outer space like you think of, coming from different planets. They're dimensional.
Yeah, well, that's what George. That's George's whole like thing when he talks with. I
was just thinking about that.
No, he talks with Inky about that. That's what his whole thing is that it's just from a different dimension. That's how they're able to kind of like, that's how they travel. They're able to access So I think we only use like, what was it, 15% of our brain?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like, I mean, it just maybe that they've kind of figured. And I imagine too, is like when you start getting up there, there's a lot of like creatures that, I mean, if you're able to keep your consciousness and upload it into like a computer, like why would you keep your form? You know what I mean? If you're able to kind of go
Right.
live in a digital life, like, you know, an entire world could, you know, be inside some supercomputer.
Right. You know, and I truly believe we are not the only
We
intelligent
can't,
species in the universe.
No, there's
we
no
can't,
way
we
we
can't,
can
we can't,
figure it
no.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, and just is saying that, have you guys seen the picture from, I think was it the Hubble or the other telescope that they have up there, you know, circling the Earth, where they
Mhm.
photographed a galaxy, and in the galaxy in the picture is a question mark, like a
Oh,
perfect question mark, like billions of miles away, right?
yeah.
And they
I have
say
not
it's
seen
like two
that.
galaxies merging, right? I
Uh,
mean, they have a thing, but they were like, wouldn't it be interesting that if aliens or another species was like putting a question mark in space, basically like, what the hell are you guys doing? You know what I mean?
yeah.
And we find the question mark.
Well, I just think it's so crazy. It's like we are literally like it's out in the middle of nowhere when relatively compared to the rest of the universe.
Right.
We are so isolated out in the middle of just BFE. And so I don't know. I just don't think. I mean, I know that they've like with like what is that with that collider? They've had like, you know, particles that have been able to go faster than the speed of light. You know what I mean? For a very very short period of time, like nanoseconds or micro. You know what I mean? Like just
Right.
So my understanding is on that is like they actually believe that they have the technology to do it, but surviving it
mm,
is the issue.
yeah, makes sense.
You know,
Right.
and that's kind of like I think me and you might have talked about it at one time, Stu. Like, you know, because G force and gravity or whatever, you know, would just, you know, pretty much destroy
Obliterate.
you.
All right.
But then we've also talked about the magnetic field wouldn't have gravity inside of it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, and
Yeah.
that's
It'd be
kind of like
pushing.
how I feel like if there are spaceships and stuff of that sort, I feel like that's how they work off of is inside a magnetic field,
Well,
and that's why they also spin as well.
when they had the guy when they just did the you know the congressional hearings for the whistleblowers for the UFOs, he would not tie it down to UFO. He would say, you know, there was a specific term he used, but it's like or something type of entity. You know what I mean? So he was doing that. So almost like if like what you said, you can't survive it. So that's the whole thing is that you would upload your consciousness to a computer. You know, like remember? Do you guys remember Flight of the Navigator?
Yes. Yep.
From when we were kids, yeah, like Flight of the Navigator, that ship was alive and it was an AI, and then like he had imprinted, you know, the celestial maps inside that kid's brain. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so, but what I mean, kind of the same thing. Like, if you know something could survive that, that was, you know, obviously it was metal or machine. But I thought
Right.
I always found it really interesting the way he had worded that. Is I almost think that, yeah, there isn't anything biological. It would be something created.
Right. You know, one of the things that just reminded me of with Bettey and Barney,
Mhm.
Bettey under hypnosis drew like a star chart,
Oh
and
yeah.
a couple people, I forget the name of the galaxy or whatever it was, but oh man, who was the guy of our time? He passed away.
Stephen
Uh,
Hawkins.
no. Before like Neil deGrasse took over, um,
Mm.
he was a kind of a skinny guy, and he always talked like this when he was
Oh, you're
talking
talking about
about.
Ben Stein. Ben
No,
Stein.
Mom, man, I can see this guy. I am having such a brain cramp right
Mm.
now. But anyways, he and one other guy that were physicists and astrologists said that all these people that are saying this is from this galaxy of like Paraxis or something, where they were drawing straight lines to stars and going, oh look, it matched up perfectly,
Mm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know, on there. So, but yeah, the guy I'm thinking of, oh my God, he was always on TV and he talked about the stars and planets, and he passed away. And my God, I cannot think of his name, and I feel stupid right now because I can't
I
think
don't
of
I
him.
don't know who you're talking about.
Yeah. Oh my God. You know what? I'm gonna look on my phone. You guys talk for a minute. I'm gonna look him up on my phone.
So we were talking about all that, and me and Stu got to talking about the stuff going on in the Peru, and there's like video of it, which is kind of vague, but these people are saying they're out there fighting 7 foot. They're being attacked by 7 foot aliens that are flying and all kinds of shit, and they're wearing red shoes.
Oh, they have metallic discs that have a red LED light emitted from the bottom that allows them to hover like 1 meter or something above the jungle floor.
Okay, now Peru has some really good things out there.
Yeah,
I think
I'm just saying, right?
On South American energy supplements.
Exactly. And by the way, it hit me right when I went to look it up. I didn't even have to go. Carl Sagan.
Okay, I remember
Carl Sagan.
Yeah.
Now you guys are younger than me, so I mean, Carl Sagan might have been before y'all's time.
No, I remember Carl Sagan.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, he was like
I don't know. I'd have to. Yeah.
Yeah, he was the big thing before Degrassi, and I mean, I like Degrassi too. I mean, he puts people in their place, and they start talking about flat Earth and all that kind of crap, you know.
Yeah. Well, that and also he doesn't.
I've got a flat earther I'm going to bring on here.
Oh yeah. Well,
UFC top 10 fucking 145 pounder Bryce Mitchell. He's a huge flat earther. I'm gonna talk to him this week, see if I can get him on here. I know he's got a big fight coming up in the next couple of weeks, so maybe we can get him on. It's a good time, and
he's funny. So he had a couple of good interviews, but then it just shows you how fickle the internet is, man. You're on top 1 second, and then you have a stumble.
Oh man, dude, love Bryce to death. I think he's the greatest, man. He's genuine as can be, but he told his views of what he believes in, and I'm talking about, man, he went from being loved to, man, I mean, he was just so hated. The guy's lost one fight in his whole career, and he just happened to lose it after you saying these views, and just, man, you want to talk about a guy catching the wrath of the internet.
Oh man, yeah.
So
that was bad.
So kind of keeping with our alien stuff too. With Mars, right? They say that they're starting to find more signs of life, and in the bacteria and stuff like that. And now they say Mars is starting to spin faster. Have you read that lately?
No,
it's a thing that came out with NASA that's saying Mars is spinning faster than they had basically calculated the rotations before, so it's spinning faster. We've got Russia about to put a lander on the moon. Did you know that?
Yeah, I heard that they were doing some.
Yeah,
I heard the damn moon was hollow.
Yeah, when the lander came down, the moon rung like a bell, and it actually hit for a while. But that was when when we landed on the moon, it rang like a bell.
That'd be interesting. The South Pole is kind of the race now, because they found water on the South Pole of the moon, right? So the Russian craft is supposed to go into orbit on the moon between the 21st and 23rd, they're saying now, and it's going to orbit for 5 days, and then they're going to land it.
Oh, it would be terrible if that thing blew up in space.
Oh, but hey, I hate to see that happen.
Dude, look, but, I used to have a genuine fear of somebody blowing up the moon. I was like, what's going to stop somebody from blowing up the fucking moon, man? You know what I mean? I'm like, it's going to cause all these tidal waves and all kinds of things.
I thought you were ducking because you thought it was blowing up right there, man. You kind of.
My charging system needs a lean.
Gotcha. I'll tell you what. If we can get back in touch with Paul, the one thing I want to talk to Paul about and see what he thinks is about the Apollo landings and Apollo 11 going to the medical channel for, I think it was like 15 minutes.
Yep.
Right. And two ham radio operators heard what they were talking about.
Yeah.
And they were talking about seeing an alien craft or aliens near where they landed. And they believe, conspiracy wise, that's the Apollo 11 mission. They also believe that Apollo 18, 19, and 20 took place as well, out of the view of the public. Now, I find that kind of hard to believe with Cape Kennedy. I mean, the Saturn V lifted off. I would think people would see that, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I mean, we'll say that, okay, when was the time frame this was supposed to have happened?
This would be in the mid 70s.
So just think about, I mean, like, we're not, like, back then, I mean, even if they did do it, I mean, you would, we're just not, they weren't as connected as we are now, if that makes sense. Like 50 years ago, you know, there wasn't nobody walking around with cameras and video recording.
Yeah, but I mean, have you ever been down to Kennedy Space Center and
Cape Canaveral,
Florida?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, you go down to Cocoa Beach, right, where they have like the astronaut museum, or they used to. I think they've moved it, but you can look right across the water and see the launch pads. I mean,
yeah, I got a good friend of mine that has a bar on Cocoa Beach, and they're always sending me videos of them taking off and stuff like that.
Right. So think about it though. In the 70s, you may not all have cameras and stuff, but a Saturn V, the most powerful rocket at the time, taking off. You don't think anybody would be sitting out there at the pool having a beer or something going, what the fuck?
Yeah,
right?
Well, you know, I mean,
the newspaper.
It depends. I don't know. Yeah, that is kind of like, maybe they just kept them up in orbit. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like maybe actually, you know what? Maybe what they did was they had simultaneous missions. You know what I mean? Like when they launched, there was actually two sets, and like
that's a possibility. You know, one of the other things too, because I want to get some video going where with this new equipment that we're hopefully getting here hopefully within the next month, where we can start putting videos up while we're talking so people can see some of the things, because there's some quote footage from Apollo 20 where they have a body on board the lunar lander. I don't know if you've ever seen that footage. If you haven't, you need to look it up. It's, I mean, obviously Hollywood can create anything, right? But if you look at the footage, you kind of, you know, you go back and forth going, I mean, it looks real. You know, it looks good. Looks real.
Things are, you know, I mean, but if I was an alien, right? If I was like, you know, why wouldn't you just go over and snatch you like Neil Armstrong and Buzz? Why don't you just be like, hey, come over here? You know what I mean?
This goes back to the whole, I think it was Roosevelt. Was it Roosevelt or one of our, supposedly one of our presidents met with aliens and had a treaty, and they were like, or was it Eisenhower? They said he was going to have some dental work.
You know, it's where he's from California, and he went to that one place, and it was
right. Supposedly he was at the dentist. Right.
Yeah, but then also they have, like, you know, they have, whether it's just like they just mixed up the press release date or whatnot, but it showed him a picture here, and then like a couple hours later showed him like the same picture, you know, like something that was like, I want to say it was like a 5 hours, but it was only 2 hours later.
Right.
It's a 5 hour journey, but yeah.
So who's to say that, you know, this wasn't part of the agreement made then?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That we won't bother you, you don't bother us in that sense, you know? Or the aliens are giving us some of this technology to get us there. I mean, when you think about certain events that have happened in time, right? That a big crash or some big UFO incident, and then all of a sudden, you know, we have fiber optics, right?
Yeah.
We make these great advances in science that it would take years and years and years, but they're like, oh, hey, this year we created such and such, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
That's kind of where I am with it. I mean, again, you know, I'm a space junkie, so I believe there's a lot of stuff going on.
Man, I totally 100% believe that somebody had to help the Nazis out. Like, wasn't nobody building that technology that fast as fast as they were coming out with crap.
Well, the UFOs of those times were, they called them bell-shaped. I mean,
Yeah.
there was one that crashed, I forget where, here in America, that it was a bell-shaped UFO. And if you look back at the World War II footage and pictures and stuff, they have this kind of bell-shaped hovercraft thing that they were trying to design, and they believe that was off of alien technology. So, I mean,
Well,
yeah, I mean, they were well ahead of their time with rockets and everything.
Well, I think that also too is you got to think that the amount of so Bob Lazar, he says that the alien technology that we have was from an archaeological dig. So something that was tens of thousands of years old. Hitler was sending people all around the world looking for,
Right.
I guess voodoo, looking for the cup of Christ, looking for the Ark of the
Yeah,
Covenant.
anything kind of religious artifacts he was all about.
Yeah, but at these point in time, they believe that, in Mecca, that, the Black Stone, some people have theorized that it's actually like alien, that it's almost like a computer. You know what I mean?
Just look at the pyramids. I
Yeah.
mean, the pyramids of their time and how big, and those slabs. I mean, I know that they were like, oh yeah, well, they put the logs down and they had the slaves and they
Man, I
rolled them
don't
on
believe
the,
that shit. There's no
Hell
way you're going to
no.
convince me. I don't.
Hell no, right? You know, I mean, how did
And
they
they're like,
build?
well, they're like, oh, they floated them, and I'm like, how in the fuck do you float that thing? Like that still don't make no sense to me.
Not only that, it was the angles and the smoothness of the cuts, but you go back and look at their tools. Yeah, they were smart with astrology and stuff like that, but in no way using hands and chisels did they get that precise of cuts, that smooth, the right angles on every stone. There, I just can't believe that.
I thought that they also had, it was like at the point in time, like some of the drill holes and whatnot, all they had was bronze, right? They hadn't even reached a certain stage where, as far as tools.
So apparently NASA owns whatever's underneath the Sphinx.
Yeah, that's what's weird too.
I've never heard that one. Now that's a new one, man.
No, check it out. Apparently the area underneath the sink is owned by NASA.
Did you say the sink or the Sphinx?
The Sphinx.
I thought you said sink. I'm like,
the
area under the sink now,
did
Bobby.
Sink, but yeah.
Are you visiting Peru, Bobby?
I'll go to fucking Peru. I'll go down there when it's snowing.
Yeah,
right?
There you go.
So
yeah.
I'm hoping by next week, two things happen. I've talked to you two both about hopefully some breaking news, and I'm not going to say anything here about it that might happen with us. Not going to say, because I don't want to put anything out there, but I'm hoping that we can get a hold of Paul. I really want Paul on the show for the whole NASA thing, and for the his thoughts and everything on all this UFO stuff, the moon, sound stages. I mean, he works with them, right? I mean, he packed the parachutes and stuff like that.
And I mean, he's gonna have his own theory. You know what I mean?
Oh, he also was saying, remember like when we had him on with George, like he was talking about like all the rumors and just like the so-called back in the day,
right?
Yeah.
So
behind closed doors, they said this. Yeah.
So let me ask this, like, and it has to be, what's the point of the government allowing to tell us, oh, we have space, we there are aliens? Like, what's the point of that?
They want to get funding.
They've hit the shit. They've hit the shit for this long.
They want to get funding for Space Force. They want to intimidate any like China or Russia or any of the people like that are starting to kind of move against the United States. Or like you said earlier, like they're prepping it for a stage where they have an attack, and you know what I mean. Then they're like, oh, we all have to band together. You know what I mean?
So here's the other thing on this, and you said it, Bobby. Back in those days, there weren't a lot of cameras and cell phones, and now there are, and people are capturing shit left and right. I mean, even Oz, he was just filming vineyards as he was going up in California to do some work, and in that final like 10th of a second frame, when you go frame by frame by frame, a UFO pops up in the frame over the grape fields. right? And I mean, and he didn't catch it for a while. And then him and I were talking. He's like, bro, you got to check this out, bro. And I'm like, what? And he's like, man, this makes me nervous. And he sent me the film and then the still shot. And sure, I think I sent it to you, didn't I, Stuart?
Yeah.
On there. And sure shit, man, there's like this object out in the field that wasn't there like a tenth of a second before that in the film.
And it looks like it's out in the field. It doesn't look like it's like a sunspot that's like on the front of the picture. It looks like it's back. Yeah.
Right. Or a fly or anything like that. It's like it just popped in. It's crazy.
And then it was gone.
And I think that's a reason why now that they're starting to say yes, there's not UFOs, what are they, UAPs now, right? And stuff, because so many people do have cameras and they just can't contain it anymore.
How sad is it though? Nobody gives a shit. Like,
nobody.
People are at the point right now. They're just like, I don't care. Like,
they'll give a shit when it turns out to be like War of the Worlds and the little things come down and start shooting beams out and burning buildings. I just keep
waiting on it to be on our paychecks, man. I keep waiting on the fucking alien tax. I'm telling you.
But you know what I would do if I was an alien? That's one of the things is like everybody, expects like, armed, hand-to-hand combat. What I would do is I would just take somebody, go up, cultivate one of the, like a cold or, COVID or whatever the fuck you want to do, monkeypox. And I would just make it so horrendously fucking just deadly. 99% death rate with 100% transmission rate. And then I would just take that person and I would just put him back down on Earth. So and I'd say, I'll come back in 10 years.
Dude, the
first thing that'll happen is we'll run completely out of toilet paper.
Yeah,
right? And then people will start wanting PPP loans.
So here's the thing, Stuart. It's funny you say that. I'm a big Planet of the Apes movie fan, right? Have you watched any of the new movies they've put out over the last like 12 years or so?
I know that.
So what you just said about quote the monkeypox or whatever with the transmission rate? Do you remember how the outbreak went to kill off basically almost 90% of humanity, and the apes became the number one?
No, so they were making something for Alzheimer's, and then essentially what had happened,
it broke out. Well, it broke. The guy was trying to put it on the ape. It blew in his mask, and then he sneezed on a pilot.
Yeah.
The pilot went to different countries. He's sick. He's spewing out of it, and then it just. So it's interesting you said that, because that was like that whole plot of how that was.
But that's what I would do. I would literally just be like, I wouldn't lose anything. I would just, if I'm able to, jump across the galaxy, I'm definitely able to cultivate like something. And I would just take a couple people and then put them back down there, and then just be like, I'll come back in a little bit.
Bobby, were you getting in the gift bag there for us, man?
Man, I was fixing to pull us out some chicken nuggets.
So, hopefully, we'll have something new for next week. Figure some stuff out. I want to give an update. Remember, I was telling you I was going to do a paranormal investigation.
Yeah.
Right. Something in the back of my head kept saying, go over and just kind of do a prelim. Man, I was, nothing going on. Ain't nothing going on there. It was one of these things, right? Where
they got rats.
They may. I mean, I think it's one of these things where they want it so bad to happen that something's happening. I tried everything, man. I have these little, you're gonna laugh, they're cat toys, right? They're these little balls that you push the button and they light up, and then when they sit still, they just go blank, right? I mean, they're just clear. And if something taps them, moves them, they'll light up. No, I've been at friends' houses where we've had them on the counter with no fans, no nothing, and I've had 4 of them lined up in a row, and like one of them go off when we're talking about different things, right? Dude, I tried that. I mean, I tried Spirit Box. I tried a Geoport. I tried thermal because I got a little thermal that hooks to my iPhone, right? And besides jumping around naked with a feather in my hand, there was nothing. So, I got to apologize. I said we were going to have somebody come with us, but man, I just had that gut feeling that I needed to check this out and kind of do a prelim beforehand. And I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did on that
and
one.
that's
So
that's how we kind of have to operate. We have to operate under that guys that because you said some people just want it. You know what I mean? Like Bobby, you've seen
I
it
mean, like
before.
you can will things into existence.
right.
You know?
And now, but I will tell you though, and I'm hoping to hear about this week too. We have a ghost hunting group that I guess is pretty. I don't want to say famous, but they're pretty well known in England, and they just did this thing at what they call the Demon Church. So they are contemplating, because one of them's kind of shy. They're contemplating coming on the show with us. It would be the first time that they did any type of podcast or show or anything
super
like
cool.
That. Yeah,
I was going to ask, and I need to check and see if you can look at the stuff, which the people are gone now, but the Annabelle movies and all that stuff, they have that play, where all that stuff is stored. I want to say it's in New Hampshire.
Well, their son still takes care of it.
Really?
Yeah, the son still takes care of it.
I would be totally down to like check that out. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I mean, they did. That's the Warrens.
Yeah, the Warrens.
The Warrens. Yeah, and I mean they were doing it way before the Amityville Horror, but yeah, that's kind of when they became famous and went over and did that. But I know that the son brought the Annabelle doll, and I'm not going to say who they are because I don't want to get sued. But I think they started on Discovery and then went to the Travel Channel and went to maybe another place. I don't know.
Yeah.
The guy told him, don't touch the doll. Right.
Yeah.
And this person touched the doll. And of course he had an experience, and, and for me, I watch some of these shows and stuff, and you got to go, come on, man. I understand.
Dude, still totally touch that doll. Like I wouldn't get him to do it.
Right. And and I've been to a few of these quote haunted museums where they have the haunted stuff and everything like that. And I hate when somebody's just trying to make a buck off of you. You know what I mean? And they got shit hanging on the wall that's just like, you look at it and it's like, man, my kindergarten kid put that up, when I was a young man and stuff. But then again, though, there's this woman in England, and I'll tell you this, man, and I might try to get her on the show. She will freak your shit out. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I'm a firm believer in the paranormal. I believe the stuff's happening, right? So a friend of mine lives here in Utah with me, and she's like my cousin. She's like a psychic or whatever, type thing. And, she's told me this and that. And she goes, she'd love to talk to you. So I'm kind of a skeptic when it comes to this type of field.
Yeah.
So I FaceTime with this woman and stuff. And she starts telling me about my mom. Right. And like, she's saying stuff to me that she shouldn't know about my mom. Right. So the other day, the freakiest part that happened was, so I have a sister and I have a brother, right? And my sister's had some medical issues that I didn't know about. Like, I don't talk to my sister about shit she does with her doctor, right?
Yeah.
So this woman, and she's nice as hell. She's a very nice woman. And she goes, she goes, I'm getting these things on your sister. She's like, does she have a problem under her arm on her side? I mean, like a medical thing. She goes, I'm feeling that. And I'm like, I don't know. Write the question down, right? And then she says, well, she goes, God, she goes, and your sister's got like a stomach problem, some gastric problem. And she's like, but I think she's taking medicine to take care. I can feel that's handled medically, right? And I'm like, I don't know, right? I write the question down.
That's gonna be terrifying.
So she says a couple other things, right? So I'm like, hey, I'll let you know. I'll get off the phone, call my sister, right? I get off the FaceTime with her, and I'm like, well, the things she's saying about my mom, she's hitting, right? And I'm like, okay, right? I call my sister and I said, hey, Deb, I go, you got anything wrong, like on your side or something? And she goes, what do you mean? And I go, well, I was talking to the lady that I introduced you to. We did a quick FaceTime with her. She said hi, but the lady in England, she was going out to the pub. So it was like, hi, bye. And I said, well, she started talking about you. And my sister goes, did you tell her about that? And I go, tell her about what? Well, my sister has something going on the side of her, right here up by her breast.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, you got something going on with your stomach? And she's like, yeah, I've got this or that going on, but I'm treating it with medicine. I forget what the condition is, but it's with her bowels, right? And I'm like,
IBS.
what? And then there was a couple other private things that I told her that this woman had said and asked. My sister started crying, man. It freaked her the hell out. This woman is pretty good. And I'd love to have her on the show just to talk to us and maybe bring somebody else on and see, because like, she was talking to me about things and we had never met. And she's just seeing me like I'm seeing you guys here. And yeah, it was pretty damn freaky, man.
I think that would be terrifying because then she'd be like, oh,
I'm totally down. Like,
as
long as she don't hit me none of that Nostradamus talk.
Yeah, well, yeah, or she'd be like, hey, you got like 5 days to live, you know. Like,
no. She's all about like seeing like relatives, or if she'll ask if you want to know something or whatever, or what's around you, but like even with my sister, she just out of the blue started talking about my sister and like throwing these things out there, because I will not give information. I'll give my first name. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think it would be kind of cool to have her on too, down the road. So, but we would definitely they are 7 hours ahead of me, which makes them 8 hours ahead of you, Stu, and 6 hours ahead of you, Bobby. Yeah, you know what? I hate you guys for this, by the way, because I'm a Polak and you make me do math. Try to figure out this whole time.
We're just adding ones and twos, man. We're not.
So we would have to do we'd have to do an early in the day one. So I'll talk to her about that too. And it would be the same if we brought on that group over there that just did the Demon Church. So
do they have English accents?
Really, Bobby, you're gonna ask me that?
I'm just curious, man. Like, I like that shit. I you know what I mean? Like,
that's like asking you if you got an accent living down south.
Well, I mean, I do have one. I mean, I don't know. They could be Scottish or something, you know?
Yeah, no, it's British accents, man. And the only thing you'll ever notice about me with an accent is if you take me back east, man, to Boston, and I'm hanging with my friends.
Yeah, you develop it.
Oh, it comes back so quick. I mean, I'll take you out for a cup of coffee and a donut for a $1.35 like that. So, all right, well, let's wrap it up, guys. We want to thank everybody, that joins us and listens to this and watches us on YouTube. You can email us at aretheyoutthere1@gmail.com. You can leave comments on the YouTube channel, which I have to say, we've gotten a lot more followers since we had George on. Things are spiking on that. So, leave us again comments, anything you'd like us to talk about, or stories that you'd like us to tell on air that's possibly happened to you out there. So
share with your friends. Share with your friends.
And
get
also,
it out there.
I want to just hear what everybody else has to say, like little like tidbits or crazy things, something that we can like kind of look up and research and I think
the thing
amazing.
is if somebody gives us a good story and it's maybe something that happened to them, we're going to do a little bit more background when we have guests and stuff, but we'll bring them on, right? And let them tell their story and let's talk about it, And the thing everybody has to remember, we all have opinions and we may not agree with everything that's said, even between the three of us. We don't agree on everything, but that's why we're here, right?
Gary,
we want to find out, are they out there?
Gary, before you get off, I got some energy coming from my hand. Can you feel it? Can you feel it?
Oh my God, Bobby. Bobby's cut off. For some reason, we're not going to be able to get him on the next show. I already feel the interference there coming in. So, all right, guys. Well, I appreciate the time tonight. You guys have a good one, and we'll talk to you here soon.
Sound good, guys.
Later.